Hello. Perhaps in reading my story and watching the videos, you've been able to follow along on this adventure of mine. It's been a great opportunity to combine aspects of my learnings of sustainability with the Amish culture and apply it to this ecotourism final. This is the final video in the story, but it's not necessarily a closing video. The final thoughts in the story cover that in depth. I just wanted to take advantage of what I see as an opportunity for the requirements in the project, and that's to discuss the references and it says explain why you chose them. I think that primarily would be covered with citations and explanations and so on and so forth when you're citing your references to build your argument. So what I saw in this opportunity was a little different than we get to, that student typically gets to do in a writing project, or something that I don't get to see in the peer-reviewed articles that I've become fond of. So the references are, of course, listed, and they're really critical because they, for science, they are necessary for the evidence that we have to put forth, so that this is, an empirical based way of presenting an argument or an angle of looking at something, or even doing a literature review. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of talk about some of the, this would be all peer-reviewed articles that I found and those that I gravitated towards. So initially, when I had this, excuse me, there's some wind out here, and I thought this was going to blow away. But initially, when I had this idea, I suspected that the social scientists had covered adequate ground in looking at this, the Amish subculture, and I was correct. I knew a fair amount about the Amish just from being exposed to the subculture. This has gone on off and on throughout my life. When I was really young, we went to Holmes County, my family and I, and it's a trip I definitely won't forget. And just in the areas that I gravitate to that are rural, you see the Amish out there. So so I had my own preconceived notions, and but I also had a good background in terms of what I was looking at. So my search pulled up some articles that were fairly old. I guess the social scientists had gravitated towards the Amish subculture quite a bit ago, and I didn't see anything really recent, but one of the articles, it's interesting how you read, when you read things, there's almost like a kind of osmosis that happens. You absorb some of the information, you realize you don't even absorb it, and what's the saying? There's no original thought. You're kind of building off of other people's thinking. And so when I was reading some of the early social work on the Amish, it was apparent that the social scientists even identified some of their environmental, um, you know, traits that I had also found just in observation, and so I think um, it's just really such a great asset that we have to be able to use these peer-reviewed articles, because some of them are are really well written, and there's so much work that goes into them. And I've always kind of aspired to those standards, and in the small time frame that I have to do those projects. So early on, one of the things I caught in the peer review was there was a mention, hedonistic consumerism was mentioned, and I think I've kind of felt that way. The term just applies. It's and how I've viewed the mainstream culture, and there was an article that's cited by Magone. He did a hedonistic consumerism article, and it's fascinating because it was an economic angle that he took. I think he's in the School of Economics there, and he talked about some economic concepts that were new to me, and he touched on some other things I've been well aware of, such as neoliberalism, and he got deeper into hedonistic consumerism, and I just really found that article helpful because it supported some of my intuition. I think these were kind of original thoughts that I had, and when I described hedonistic consumerism and attached it to the mainstream, I kind of did that initially without much reference. So I had to go back and kind of find out more, and then also maybe a seed that was dropped from some of the social scientists that studied Amish subculture and mentioned that same term. Interestingly, well ahead of its time. It was, I think, one of the social scientists that did work as peer reviewed that I used was like in the 90s, and he had mentioned that term. So moving on, when I was describing definitional limitations and tourism, we had an article in class that we used, Tourism and Poverty Reduction, which I thought was a great article. It looked at the colonization that's happened from these small island states, and the implications of that, and poverty. So I was able to cite it, and I'm glad I found some information in there to kind of wrap up some support for the definitional things that were discussed. And as you follow this string of learning, it's funny how it kind of goes back and forth to some of the stuff that you've discovered in prior projects, and I did my capstone / thesis in an area of social sustainability, so I had to really dig into a lot of the social sustainability concepts, and I had this term that was used in a social sustainability article. What is social sustainability? Clarification of concepts, and they used the term starter castles, and I just had always hung on to that terminology because I thought it just describes a lot and in just one word. I don't think I'm gonna be able to find the actual quote in here because the darkness today and just the ability to read this thing. There it is. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to read this paragraph because sometimes these are people that write professionally, and sometimes they can say it so clearly, and I think it's our job as students to kind of recognize some of the intelligence out there, and in terms of what we cite, source. So also, here it is, also relevant here is the way many of today's consumers, gadgets, toys, and even houses promote and intensify forces of individualization and disengagement from public life. Commentary on the most recent enchantment of suburbia draws attention to the starter castle housing. SUVs that make up compulsory driveway accessories and gruesome affections of spelling that characterize many newer suburbs. He calls this latest iteration of the suburbs vulgaria to highlight the blatant assault on good taste demonstrated there. Vulgaria, he argues, serves to naturalize social and cultural power inherent in political economic structures. Currently, competitive consumption, moral minimalism, and disengagement from notions of social justice and civil society, and makes this order appear inevitable. So, anyway, I was able to dig up some old social sustainability articles and use them in the project, and so there of course there was some other there's other references cited, and but I just kind of want to take advantage of this opportunity to, instead of what you see in the writing, the citing, and the sourcing of these wonderful peer-reviewed articles that are out there that we're able to actually use. I just want to take a few minutes just to kind of go through them, and a few of them that resonated with me through conversation in this video. So thanks for making it this far, and good luck on your ventures out there, being a tourist, and I look forward to many more experiences, seeing the people and culture and places of the world. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed.